Hello, judges.
Well, hello.
Hello.
I have the great team from Alabama with us, and they have two teachers, Amy Maddox and Jane Schaefer, who prefer to have their cameras off, but they're here and their mics are on if we need to talk to them about anything. We just had a nice conversation. Everything seems to be good with technology on their end. And I just want to remind us all to turn off our cell phones and also to put on your do not disturb feature on your computer, if you don't mind. I just wanted to introduce myself to everyone formally. I'm Marcie Thoma, and I'll be your Unit 6 facilitator. I'm from the great state of Maryland. We will be a welcome to the National Finals Challenge. And we're going to begin today by having the judges introduce themselves. If you could then introduce yourself to the judges. One of the judges will then read the question, and then we'll be looking forward to hearing your 4-minute presentation, prepared presentation, and the judges will then ask you 6 minutes of prepared of questions that they have for you. I do want to also remind you that I am also your timer. So I will be holding up a 1 minute and a time card for you when it's appropriate. Now I'm going to turn this over to our great Unit 6 judges, and we look forward to have this experience with you today. Judges?
Well, hello, Alabama. We've been looking forward to hearing from you today. We're here in Unit 6. My name is tomvontz. I'm a professor at Kansas State University, but I've been a visitor to Alabama many times, and Birmingham, Alabama in particular. So looking forward to talking with you.
My name is Tom Tinder, and I'm an attorney from Charleston, West Virginia.
And I'm Steve Frantzich, retired professor of political science from the U.S. Naval Academy.
So now you know who we are. Who are you?
Hello, my name is Safa Khan. I will be attending University of Alabama, Birmingham, and I'll be majoring in political science.
Hi, my name is Jake Arnold. I will be attending the University of Alabama in the fall, majoring in business, and yeah.
My name is Kyuna Kim. I will be attending Vanderbilt University in the fall with a major in psychology. Our teachers, Miss Amy Maddox and Miss Jane Schaefer, are here with us today, and we're all so excited to be here.
Well, we are too. We're looking forward to a great, like 15-minute discussion. I want to thank your teachers for participating. Even in the context of all of this, they still have you here and ready, and it's been a fantastic morning. We're going to end on a high note. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, sounds wonderful.
Sounds great to us.
Here we go. In 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Never in the history of this nation have so many people been arrested for the cause of freedom and human dignity. What lessons can be learned from the Children's March in Birmingham, Alabama? What is civic engagement and what is its significance in American history? What responsibility, if any, do schools have to promote civic engagement? You may begin when you are ready."
Thank you. I live 20 minutes from the Birmingham City Jail, and in June of 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. sat in that jail and wrote, "We will reach the goal of freedom in Birmingham and all over the nation because the goal of America is freedom." Just 1 month before, children as young as 6 years old marched in the Children's Crusade to protest racial inequality. In direct response to this march, King emphasized that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. These words defined the constant struggle to secure true freedom.
Perhaps more than any other event of the era, the Children's March demonstrated the battle for civil rights was a multi-generational challenge. Grandparents and parents fought not just for themselves, but for the future. With the Children's Crusade, the children fought for their freedom. As Dr. King stated, the kids themselves knew what was at stake. When Birmingham infamously responded by arresting 900 children, the nation could no longer ignore race relations in the Deep South. Having children engage in the civic protests was a critical catalyst in prompting tragically overdue change.
The Institute for Policy and Civic Engagement defines civic engagement as participation in community or government activity to shape its future. More broadly, they frame civic engagement as a means to the end of promoting an effective democracy. In the United States, civic engagement is a fundamental cornerstone protected by the Constitution. During the colonial era, virtual representation limited civic engagement, ultimately causing revolt. To protect against this, the First Amendment secured the rights to speech, petition, and assembly. Furthermore, a multi-tiered government empowers people to participate with more direct connections to representatives.
Throughout American history, there are countless examples of the positive impact of civic engagement. After World War II, union membership was at an all-time high, with 35% of workers belonging to a union. Post-war revivals increased participation in religious organizations that harbor the spirit of civic engagement. In the 1960s, the Civil Rights Movement and the National Organization for Women used participation to expand voting, political, and economic rights. In the 1970s, civic engagement prompted the expansion of the Clean Air Act and the creation of the EPA. More recently, protests for LGBTQ rights led to Obergefell v. Hodges, where the court ruled that the right to marry cannot be denied based on sexual orientation.
In his writings, Dr. King emphasized the benefits of encouraging children to embrace civic engagement. One way to do this is through civic education. Chief Justice John Roberts commented last year that this country takes democracy for granted because civic education has fallen to the wayside. In a world with seemingly limitless access to information, educating students about civic engagement directly impacts the future of our democracy. According to the Annenberg Public Policy Center, only 26% of Americans can name all 3 branches of government, and only 23% of 8th graders perform proficiently on the NAEP civics exam. In response, Florida passed the Sandra Day O'Connor Education Act in 2010 to require a semester of civics education in 7th grade.
Over 80% of the 7th grade teachers now use the iCivics program, and their students had a remarkable 68% proficiency. Clearly, iCivics and other civics programs can significantly impact civic education. Making civic education mandatory encourages a greater embrace of AP government courses, volunteer opportunities, and civic activities. At our school, programs such as mock trial, debate, and We the People provide students opportunities for civic engagement.
Addressing 21st century challenges will require a commitment to civic education, engagement, and advocacy.
American democracy thrives only when current generations honor and embrace the civic lessons taught to us by the struggles of our predecessors. Thank you. We are now ready for your questions.
Well, thank you very much for that outstanding opening statement. We do have a few questions, however.
Thank you very much. Also, I want to go explore a little bit more about the Constitution. In what ways does the Constitution promote civic engagement, and in which ways does it hinder civic engagement?
Well, I think if I can speak for the hindering side, the US government actually works on a dual federalism, which means that we have state level governments and laws are protected through the 10th Amendment, while the federal government can enact their own sorts of ways to promote civic engagement through the Commerce Clause in between states. But however, this layer can actually hinder people and make it more difficult to be able to go through the levels to engage in civic engagement.
More broadly, though, if you just look on a surface level, the First Amendment clearly protects speech, assembly, and religion.
Any other limits on civic engagement in the United States? You mentioned that we have a federal system, and that can be seen as limiting. Any other limits?
Okay, I don't know if this exactly answers your question, but something that I find interesting is that through the First Amendment, hate speech is actually not hindered through the Constitution, which I personally think should be hindered in the sense that it can actually harm the common good. If you look towards the definition of civic engagement that we give to you in our opening statement, it actually covers hate speech and defines hate speech to be a part of civic engagement. So through the Constitution, we actually open up avenues for hate speech, which I think should be hindered.
Right, and voting is a huge form of civic engagement, and sometimes for certain minority groups, it's really hard, and in other rural areas, to go out and vote, and especially in times of crisis like right now with the coronavirus.
And
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I was just going to say, going off what Safa just told you, with Shelby County v. Holder in 2013, the Voting Rights Act was actually made not as efficient and usable for states, which actually hindered a lot of minorities from voting, and disenfranchisement increased greatly throughout the nation.
Let's turn our attention to civil disobedience for a couple minutes. Is civil disobedience always an appropriate tool of civic engagement?
Well, civil disobedience in most of the time is used kind of as a last resort. They see this law that they see as unjust, so they write their representatives first, and they go through all these different actions until civil disobedience was necessary, like we saw in the Children's Crusade and different bus boycotts and such like on those lines during the civil rights movement.
You talked about voting. Should we have compulsory voting in the United States? Why or why not?
I personally don't think that we should have compulsory voting because I think that in the United States, while we do have a right to be civically engaged, we also have the right to be civically ignorant. And if people choose to be civically ignorant, as we can see as our voting turnout is not always 100%, then those people shouldn't be required to vote, since if they make ignorant decisions, for lack of a better term, then it could actually harm us and not help popular sentiment.
Right. And the huge part about being an American is having this freedom, and making anything compulsory, especially with voting, can take away that sense of freedom.
There have been a number of demonstrations recently against the COVID-19 virus in the sense of the stay-at-home orders. Do you think we're going to look back at those as being good examples of civic engagement, and how should public officials respond to that kind of civic engagement?
I think throughout the world, we are actually seeing some positive forms of civic engagement. Like in Hong Kong, people are protesting 6 feet apart. So they're social distancing, but they're making their opinions known. However, if we look at protests in Michigan, Colorado about the shelter-in-place order, we are, while seeing most people in cars, some people are outside without masks. And those things I don't think should be condoned.
Right. And it's really up to the states, guaranteed by the 10th Amendment. So if certain things have gone out of hand, it's really put on the burden of the states to control certain aspects of these situations, because, you know, the public health is defined as one of their powers.
We put limits on voting, right? Resident aliens can't vote. If you're under 18, you can't vote. If you're a felon in most states, you can't vote. Do you agree or disagree with any of those limits on voting?
I actually want to talk about felons and after being incarcerated. So if we look at the prison system right now, the minority is disproportionately represented in the felon population. And currently 11 states actually do not allow convicted felons to vote again. So they're disenfranchised for life. If we do something like that, the minority vote is essentially being taken away from all of these polls.
However, we do need to take into account John Locke's social contract theory, and when one violates the social contract, some of their rights are stripped away because they violated the rights of others. And in certain more heinous crimes such as murder or rape, their right, they took someone else's right away, so their voting rights are taken away in that instance.
What is the distinction between civic engagement and belonging to a group, regardless of its purpose?
I think that civic engagement means advocating for the common good. And Safa, you can take over.
Right. So belonging to a group means you can have different forms of engaging with each other, but there's the key word of being civically involved. You're trying to politically activate for a change, right? So there's a distinction between two. It's the politics. Like with the Children's March, there was change, political change to have more, sorry, may I finish my statement? There was change to advocate for the rights of the children and fight against racial inequality.
Great job.
Thank you very much, Alabama. Great job. I'll go ahead and go first with providing some feedback, and then I'll ask my fellow judges to also provide some feedback. Again, I think that, you know, you did such a nice job in both, in particular, the prepared remarks, but then also in follow-up of being able to make some generalizations about civic engagement, but then back them up with some specific examples. And I really appreciated that. You know, on the civil disobedience question, you know, you hit one part of it out of the park. And that is, you know, it's not always justified. You have to, Dr. King, for example, in his letter from the Birmingham jail that you live, what'd you say, 6 blocks away from or something like that, or not far from, he said that, you know, one aspect of when it's justified is when, you know, you've made repeated attempts, just like you said, Jacob, at trying to get the law changed, and this isn't working. And so then we have to go to something that's a little bit more extreme. I think he even used that term. And then the second part of that is that it's not just any law that is a potential to use civil disobedience. It's laws that are unjust, that don't square with moral law, that are unjust laws. And so I thought you did an excellent job, Alabama. And you're from Birmingham, then you must be, yeah. And what is the name of the? I thought I'd committed this to the barbecue place. Dreamland.
Dreamland, yeah.
Dreamland. I was going to say DreamWorks, but that's the name of a movie production house, not a barbecue. Yeah, Dreamland is so good.
I thought you did an excellent job. I really enjoyed the energy in your opening presentation. That it was well crafted. You excited us by what you had to say because you seemed to be excited about it. So I thought it was excellent that way. Good historical background. I like the tie-in to Birmingham, and you know, you got a special advantage in that area, but you used it well. Good facts. You brought in statistical facts that were relevant, and they backed up the arguments you were making. So, excellent job.
I really enjoyed it. In fact, I enjoyed it so much. I'd like Marcie to put another 3 or 4 minutes on. So, I mean, what else do we have? Very, very good job. I really enjoyed your presentation. I really enjoyed the historic perspective you gave with unions and the now and EPA and so forth. And as Steve said, your energy, your advocacy, you really wanted to make your presentation, and you really wanted to answer our questions. Very well done. Congratulations to you, and you and your teacher are to be commended for your outstanding job, particularly during these extraordinary times. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So thank you, teachers and students, and just hang in there for a moment while I put the judges in a breakout room, and I'll get right back to you, okay?
Okay.
Just hold on.
Bye, Alabama. Great work.
Thank you so much for your
so much.
time.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to thank you once again, and thank your teachers, Miss Maddox and Miss Schaefer. And I see that your coordinator, Mr. Stevens, is on the line as well. So thank you all. You should be very proud of your presentation. It was just it was excellent. And thanks for participating. Thanks for being flexible. And thanks for being so persistent with working with us in this process. We really, really appreciate it. And what a great place to live in Birmingham. We've all, civic educators, of course, go there for obvious reasons. Congratulations. I just hope you move forward and are happy with the work that you presented here, because your passion shows, and that's so important.
Thank you so much.